Welcome to the Good Rookie Show. My name is Faheem.
My name is Nelly J, y'all, and we are good rookies.
That's right.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Good Tuesday, and guess what? It's the Good Rookie Show.
Good Rookie Show. That's right.
Absolutely. And you guys, we always talk sports and culture. We're for the people, by the people. And today is no other. Fahim, I'm so excited for this guest. Please introduce who we got.
Well, I understand why you're excited. He's somebody who's we've come up and he's helped us along the way in many aspects. Hopefully, during our For the Culture segment, we can double down on that a little bit more. But he also brings a lot of knowledge to the table. So it's always great talking to him. Let's welcome Kevin Pryor to the podcast today.
Kevin,
Nice.
Kevin.
I truly appreciate you guys, Faheem, Nelly. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure rocking with you as well.
Well, Kevin, it's always a pleasure to talk sports with you. I swear you're so knowledgeable and you're also humble. Like you're very humble. A lot of sports guys aren't that humble. You know what I'm saying?
But you gotta tell that to my co-host. They don't normally believe that. But
nah, you're humble. I mean, hey, you say it with your chest. That ain't your fault. You're passionate, but you're humble as well. But I gotta ask you this question because this is someone that has bounced around a few teams. He was considered one of the best in his position. But I don't know what's going on. So maybe you can let us know what's going on. Julio Jones was announced today to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
He was with the Titans. Last year, everyone said Tennessee was going to make it. They had Henry, they had Julio. Of course they're going to make it. They had a great defensive end, but they still didn't get it done last year. Will Julio do anything for the Bucs? Like, what do you expect from this guy who has kind of had a really weird last couple of years?
Well, again, the thing with Julio Jones, the pride of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, had a great career with the Falcons. It's just the NFL is a brutal sport. A guy like Julio's taking a lot of shots, a lot of treading the tires. Obviously, when he went to Tennessee, was more in name than obviously in production. And it showed, he had an injury plagued year, really didn't get off much. And obviously trying to catch lightning in the bottle with Tom Brady. If you're going to go play somewhere as a veteran, obviously you realizing your NFL sunlight is almost dim, why not go with Tom Brady, go chase a ring? Again, we see what happened to Tampa. Gronkowski retired. So there's a void there. They don't need Julio to do much. Again, he's still a big body. He's still somebody on certain nights or certain Sundays can perform at a high level. He just can't do it at a continued rate. So I think it's a good pickup for both sides. I think it's a good fit for Julio because he can come in. And Tampa's not bringing him in for a 17-game stretch. Tampa's making a move like this for maybe a play in the NFC Championship, a play to win a division. Somebody who's, a defense in the right position they have to play honest on. So again, good move by both parties. And for Julio's sake, I hope it works well.
No, I definitely think everything you said I agree with. It's something where I'm like, Julio is not gonna be playing, like you said, every game, right? So fantasy folks, don't pick up Julio in your fantasy. Please do not do that to yourself. You will be upset. However, I do think he's a veteran presence. I haven't really seen him play that much because of injuries, to your point, but we know he's talented. He's super talented. So if he can rest up and only play a few games, I think in Tennessee they need him to play a lot of games. And to the Bucs, he won't have to do that. Plus, I mean, the quarterback, Tannenhill versus Tom, I mean, is a more accurate thrower, a better QB. So I don't know. I feel like we might see an average year from him. Not the best, but I think he might surprise some folks because Tom Brady makes, like lower receivers look really good. So imagine what he can do for Julio, who isn't really. I think Julio may be even motivated even more because you're playing for one of the greatest in the game. So yeah,
he makes chuck steak in the porterhouse. I mean, and again, like you said, it's a situation where he's not coming in where he needs to catch 80, 90 balls, right? if Julio Jones catches 25, 30 passes this year, as long as they're strategic, they're fine. So it'd be a good situation for them.
And you know what? So I guess this for me, it solidifies that Tampa Bay is kind of doing what Golden State did. Before Steph Curry and Clay came, Golden State was never really a destination. That's kind of how I feel in football, where Tampa Bay is now. It's since Brady's been there, he's pretty much solidified and laid down the groundwork for the future for them. I'm just more wondering when Brady eventually decides to retire, if he's late enough to be a free agent destination, or if it's strictly because of Tom Brady, or if he can lay a culture for the future. What do you guys think, real quick?
Well, I'll start off. I think obviously it's all Tom Brady. It's all that's a Tom Brady thing. It has nothing to do with Tampa. Tampa, is a team that they won a Super Bowl way back with Warren Sapp and Derrick Brooks and those guys, and when those guys left and it became again the Succaneers. So again, for Tom's sake, it was a great spot to go to. From playing all those brutal winters in New England to going to warm Tampa, which is a nice town. People now want to go play there with him because he's the GOAT. And when he leaves, that leaves with him.
Okay.
I mean, again, I'm a big Tar Bowles guy. As you know, I'm a Jet fan, former Jet coach. So I always root for guys in his position, men of color that are head coaches in the NFL. But once Tom is out, whenever that is, and again, he's got that TV contract sitting there, but $250 million. the talk sports,
just chilling in the back pocket,
just in the cut, just like it's just here.
Like, I'm here, brother. So, whenever you ready for me.
I got a funny feeling this could be Tom Brady's last year. Now, again, I mean, I know what his father says. You got to carry him off the field and all that, but once you start, even in normal. And like mortals like us, you start thinking about your next job. Your current job is on life support. So I just think that this might be the year, if they win it, he's done. But I think again, this could be his swan song.
And so for Julio, I mean, this is a beautiful story to play with Tom before he retires. I mean, any receiver would love to play with Tom Brady. So, I mean, it totally makes sense. I'm sure it wasn't a hard sell. Hey, when it comes to Tampa, where do I sign, bro? I don't care how much money I'm getting paid.
No state tax.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And it's the outside, right? So,
right. So Kevin, so you mentioned life support, and it kind of feels like with the XFL 2023, they have tried on many occasions to have a league outside of the NFL be successful in the United States. And they just never seem to have one that can hold for any period of time to even get any traction. COVID came, unfortunately, with the XFL and kind of snuffed out any movement with that. It looks like now they're looking to relaunch into 2023 with 8 new teams. So I'm just going to list off the 8 new teams. Just let me know what you think, because we're going to get into that. I got some questions in regards to that. So first we have Arlington's one, Houston, Vegas, Orlando, San Antonio, Seattle, St. Louis, and lastly, Washington, D.C., which I find a very interesting one for many reasons. But Kevin, with the XFL for 2023, first, we'll get into the 8 teams. What do you think the relaunch, first of all? And where do you think this is going to go?
Well, just for clarity, you're talking to somebody that was around for XFL 1. I mean, trying out for the New York, New Jersey Hitmen. So obviously, the first 2 renditions were Vince McMahon, right? Rendition 1 of the XFL was more entertainment. They were trying to sell TNA and be the WWE on a football field. Rendition 2 wasn't too bad, but then we had a global pandemic. Now with the third stanza, I think it will be the best stanza because it's not McMahon anymore. You're talking about, The Rock, his business partner and former wife, Danny Garcia.
Right.
And so I think again they have an emphasis on football. They're partnering with the NFL. So you'll see things that the the XFL will try out for the NFL. So that's a kind of a partnership. So they know their role. They've got great funding where they're actually able to pay players quality salaries. They just finished a road show to multiple cities looking for the best talent. So I think, again, this rendition of the XFL will be the best. I think the USFL, which was played this past season, had a very successful first year and will be back for a year too. I think, again, for the football fan, when taken into account, hey, you know what? It's not the NFL. It's almost like G League for football. If you come with that anticipation, that focus, that hey, I'm just enjoying the game. I'm not looking for the greatest athletes, but yet it's better than just watching paint dry in the spring, early spring and summer, then you will enjoy it. You can't compare it to the NFL, but I'm a football guy, and I found myself watching USFL games. Even people say, oh, I don't want to watch it. I found myself doing it. I think the XFL, I'll be doing the same.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm actually happy with these new cities too, because I think all these cities can actually have better, like, I think before they were in cities that had other, like, I guess, bigger college states, like
Yeah.
college football and then NFL, like these places, like, first of all, it's not in Texas. Well, I think Arlington's the only one, and Houston. Those two places are huge Texas states, like
San
football states.
Antonio as well.
Yeah, San
Part,
Antonio. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's football, right?
Yeah.
So having 3 teams in that state is so smart strategically.
Yeah.
Also having a team in Vegas, love it. Vegas is becoming a hub for, they have the Ignite team, now they got this. Like, I think they've really picked really good teams. Orlando is a great tourist area. People come in and out, a good spot as well. Seattle, Seattle I think has a lot of football fans, and of course DC. So DC is the only one I'm curious to know that back, but I guess DC is central to a lot of states. There's a DMV area, so that
Well, the
makes sense.
DC explosion that was part of the 2020 XFL actually had great attendance, had very solid
Oh,
attendance.
really? Okay, so that
Right.
makes
And
sense.
they play at a soccer stadium, so they have the logistics in place. You mentioned Seattle, same thing with Seattle soccer stadium with a great fan base, logistics. And if you look at every other team outside of Seattle and DC, they're all in warm weather markets or they play indoors.
Yes, I did notice
So
that. Yeah.
so you're talking about February, and again, I'm going back to the old XFL. People weren't going to Giant Stadium in like 10 degrees in February. It's not happening.
Exactly.
But if you're in Orlando, you're in Vegas, LA has got too much going on, so
You don't want to be there.
you don't need LA.
You don't need LA.
Right. You got football crazy Texas. And then you add that with St. Louis, which doesn't have a football team, and they actually did very well with
And they
another
lost the
league.
team, right? Didn't they lose a team or something?
They lost the Rams years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but they had a team. It was another league that didn't last long. 2019.
That's
called
right.
the Alliance of American Football. They had a St. Louis team that actually packed out that dome. So again, when you think about strategic placement, people say, "Oh, no, LA, New York." They weren't coming anyway. The last time the XFL was at the MetLife, got an 80,000 seat stadium with like 5,000 people. It looks like doesn't look good for logistics and business. And again, you got to play in front of packed houses. So I like what they've done.
Yeah, I think that I can tell they strategically pick places that they can be successful in, and they actually also look at historical data and look at just like logistics, like branding and fans. You need fans in those states. So plus, as you both know, XFL is partnering with the CFL. So I'm curious to know when they launch in 2023, how that's going to work. Because I know the CFL in Canada and XFL did do some partnerships. So I'm wondering if maybe have some teams kind of fly down, because I think our season starts in the summer. So I'm just curious to know how that's gonna work. But I'm liking it. I think it's really good, and I'm hoping I'm actually hoping The Rock does really well, because he is it's his league. So
sports media, I mean, when you think about entertainment and putting that thing together, there's no better person to do it.
Exactly.
So I think, again, that they got a very good chance of being successful. And again, once you're partnering with the big boy, you're not really trying to compete. You're just saying, hey, you know what? It's a nice little play for us. And with all this stuff happening in the college game with NIL and, a lot of these Power 5 schools are doing realignment with conferences. It's going to be a situation, maybe not this year or next, where it's going to be a kid who says, you know what? I don't want to go to school. I'm going to the XFL, and that's going to happen sooner than later.
Oh, that is so true. So, question. I maybe it's a dumb question, but the NFL has no rule that you have to go to the NCAA to play in the NFL, right? That's only in basketball, or is there a rule?
No, there is a rule on the NFL side.
Okay.
You don't have to play college, but you do have to be 3 years removed from your high school
High
graduation.
school. Oh, okay.
Right.
So it's not a strict like you have to go here, but you have to at least have 3 years after high school to play in the NFL. Do you wonder why that is? Like if a kid is really talented, especially like we see some of these linebackers, some of these O-line, you know, like these like they're really good in college. Why do you think this 3-year wait? I'm just curious to know. Is it because they want to feed into the college business? Like I'm just curious if you know the history behind that.
Well, I think that, you know, when you think to say that, you know, I think it comes down to the NFL is such a powerful machine. They don't need it. Like the NBA is a different sport. Football's a different animal. I mean, in all my days, well, I'm trying to say I'm like 80, but and my following football, there's only 3 players that I can pinpoint in my time as to that can actually have made the jump. One was Adrian Peterson. 2 was the guy running for senator in Georgia, Herschel Walker, and 3 was I forgot Billy Sims. This is going way back. I'm showing my age, but normally Billy Sims. He played at Oklahoma. He was also running back for Detroit Lions before he got a knee injury.
So they're all running backs. They're all running backs. So my question is that, but because there are some that could make it, like it's not common, of course, but I mean. Maybe it's not common because I feel like football is a different beast, right? But I think people have shorter lifespans in football too, especially running backs.
True.
So that's why I was wondering, like, if they can, if after 1 or 2 years they're elite, you know, that jump can be made. But the fact it's a 3-year hard stop. I just think that it limits, you know, their potential of making, I guess, getting the jump. But I totally get it. I think the XFL, if they can play XFL 3 years, then the NFL. That's dope too.
That's a possibility. There was a guy named Maurice Clarett. I don't know if you guys know that name. He played at Ohio State, and he tried to break the antitrust law because he played 1 year at school, and then he had a situation, got paid by an agent, and he tried to, you know, break the law. He took it to court, and he won the case. And also another guy, Jermaine Jarrett, I believe his name is, from USC. He jumped in too. But then obviously they were only 2. But the NFL has such a system in place with the colleges. They got a baked-in farm system, and all this money at these universities are getting.
Exactly.
This is why, again, and again, like I said, it's not conducive for 99 3/4 are not able to make that jump. That's why a league like the XFL, and I'm sure the USFL eventually will as well if they stick around, will eventually got to get players that say, you know what, I don't want to go to school. Now, that's going to be a very small number because one thing about the NFL is kind of a protocol league, right? And again, these people get behind these think tanks, these GMs and these presidents, and they want people to follow the rules. Don't necessarily agree with it, but they're very stringent. But there will be a player, too, that's going to be like, look, you know, maybe he goes to school, he transfers, or he's at a junior college because he couldn't, you know, academically get into a 4-year school, and he might go to one of these leagues, you know, because again, but in this day and age with college football with NIL, it's probably not the greatest thing unless the kids just can't make the grade. And in most cases, even in college, I hate to say it, even if you're not that bright, they still get you in one way or the other at some schools. But nevertheless, there will be a player very soon that is going to make that jump. It's not enough talent out here to not say a kid in Texas or California or Florida, and he's like, you know what, I can make maybe, I think they're going to be getting paid like about 80 to 100 grand. I'll get 80 to 100 grand. I can still try to go after some sponsor opportunities. I'll do that for 3 years and I'll go to the NFL.
Yeah, great point.
Here's where I have a little bit of like, obviously I wish the best for the XFL, but I do kind of have a little bit of a doubt of the system. For instance, in the NBA, like you mentioned before, there's a G League. You know, in baseball, you have AAA, AA, you have the minors, right?
Right.
For football, there's really no clear funnel to the league outside of the NCAA. So unless you're playing college football, that seems to be the most common one. like you
Right.
mentioned, NIL, things are changing in other sports. I feel that with football, it's a little bit farther behind
Of
in
course.
regards to establishing that, because technically you would figure something like the CFL. Right now, with the NFL being the professional league, the CFL technically would be the second highest level of football in North
Yes.
America. Am I off with that? Yes, right?
No, I
So,
agree.
okay, so if the CFL would be the second highest, equivalent to, say, the NBA's G League, um, the NFL seems to have no interest in scooping up these players that possibly could get a tryout to an NFL team.
They don't need to. They got the
There's
feeder
so much.
system from
There's
college,
Right.
so they don't
Yeah.
need to.
There's
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
But
so that's
not to cut you off, but that's where I think, and again, I'm a fan of CFL game. You know, you guys know my background with that. But I think again, the CFL could be on. Need to watch what the XFL does. Not so much
Right.
the USFL, because USFL, the salaries weren't, they kind of comparable to the CFL. But what
Right.
the XFL is talking about is paying, you know, a little bit of a higher dollar, being the second highest paid football league. And if that happens, even though with CFL, when you sign a deal, you're kind of locked in for 3 years. You know, guys who don't make the NFL normally would go play in the CFL. You know, obviously, you know, a couple players for US on each team, but now some of those players might stick around for the XFL because of their partnership. So I think right now the CFL, which I know has had a lot of financial issues in the past, and again, I think even here in the States, we need to support the CFL because it is the oldest professional league in North America.
Right.
But again, it's a lot of financial strains there where, like, I think Zach Calero's the highest paid player, and that's only like, you know, $300K. So, and he's like the Tom Brady of that league. So,
Right.
it's again, it's a very, you know, competitive and physically demanding sport like any football field is. And again, like I said, these guys don't necessarily get the same type of revenue that you know the XFL is looking to offer next year.
I would be really surprised if the XFL, because you mentioned earlier about, you gave the example of St. Louis, where St. Louis, they had the Rams, but then they had the other team in St. Louis also, and you said they're packed.
Battle Cats, I think the Battle Star, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, and you said they were doing very well there, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that would actually be surprising to me, because I would think that, as much as I know in the United States, football is number one, right? I just didn't think that there was enough spillover, because I don't know if NFL fans would be a fan of both leagues, for instance, like, you know, like follow the NFL and also follow the XFL. I would assume that you're probably going to get those people who maybe for some reason aren't so much into the NFL and want to focus on the XFL as like their first football league, I would assume, right? So, I mean, I would think that the easiest play for this to be successful is really target in on those who maybe aren't so hyper focused on the NFL. Now, I know their play dates is going to be different also, like with them being Sunday, etc., right? But
yeah, I think that's why I'm saying, like, even though, like, your point is definitely valid, because they don't play at the same time as the NFL, it's not going to be an issue because they're not competing for the NFL crowd. And most NFL fans like myself, when Super Bowl is over, we're like, oh my gosh, we gotta wait for all this time until football starts. Now you can still watch some football. We haven't had that since the COVID. We haven't had any football other than CFL. And if you're in the States, you're not really getting CFL coverage like
Fair
that.
enough.
So then
and think about the sports dollar. Think about the sports viewership in February at the Super Bowl, right? Now, obviously, I'm talking to Raptors, confidential here. But outside of basketball, and even with basketball, it's kind of the dog days, February, March for certain people. Obviously, for diehards like us, that's not the case. But for the normal viewing fan, it's kind of a rough time. I know you guys are in Canada, so hockey's king. But here in the States, hockey, has its niche audience. Baseball has a niche audience, but baseball doesn't even start until April. So you really got from February right after the Super Bowl to at least early April, where it's like anybody even really focuses on sports. You got that's golf time and stuff, and that young Gen Xer is not focused on that. Football brings a certain type of excitement, where again, it's not going to be the NFL. You're not going to get 80,000 people, you know that. But if you can get 15 to 20,000 people to attend the game, Now with all this streaming out here, all these streaming networks, which I think I believe the XFL is looking to do, because that's how Gen Xers, and Gen Z watch their stuff. They watch it, do streaming. They watch it on their iPads or their phones, and they stream it to their TV. So if they're gonna just tap into that audience a small bit, maybe some of the people like our age, the Gen Xers, and then get a small percentage there, I think they'll survive. Plus, they'll have a TV deal as well. Now the only key that could be an issue is how is two spring football leagues going to coincide with each other? That's where it's going to be a problem. I can't see the USFL and the XFL.
Yeah, that's the only challenge.
Something's going to give. Now, that's the issue that can happen. So I personally see there might be a merger eventually, because somebody's got to sit in the room and go, look, this is not going to work. You got Moose Johnson, Dow Johnson's with the USFL, and they have some strategic former NFL people there as well. I think eventually those two leagues are going to come together, because it does not make sense to have two spring leagues. That's where like the worlds are going to collide. But I think from a football viewer, they'll find a niche and they'll find a home, and especially in those markets as well, where it's weather's nice and there's not a lot of sports to offer.
Well, Steph. So Nelly J, I think it's about that time. Let's go to For the Culture.
For the culture. We like to highlight individuals for the culture. And today we get to highlight the one, the only, Kevin Pryor. 950 Kev, a public figure, talk show host, producer, network ad media consultant, public speaker,
a lot of jobs there.
Goodness, network, catch card, coach. Like he's played, y'all. Like I don't know what Kevin has not done.
Never been president of the United States. I'm not Barack.
Okay. I mean, one day. I mean, hey.
They don't need me in that situation.
One day. But no, Kevin, you're for the culture because you're someone that I really admire, because like you're never just comfortable with where you're at. Like you're always doing something to add to your repertoire. And if you don't know it, you kind of learn how to do it. Walk us through what really made you want to become, because I know you weren't even into talking sports and hosting TV show. We spoke about the last episode about how you became a TV host, but what drives you today? What's something that I think a lot of people don't know about you that really motivates you to keep pushing and keep adding more jobs to yourself?
That's a great question. I think my tenacity, right? That's a great word, tenacity. I think it some people don't like it. Like even my own team, I think I even can wear it thin. And it's a smart person knows, like, you can look in the mirror and be objective with themselves, right? But it's just something about me that I enjoy the journey, right? This journey that I've chosen, you guys have chosen, is something I have a passion about. I've always had a passion for it. Didn't know if I really wanted to do it before, but then obviously once you get into something, I'm a type of person, I want to do it right. I want to excel in it. I want to be a leader in it. So if I don't know something, you're right, I'm going to learn it. I don't talk about things I don't know. And again, I feel like, you know what, if you embrace the ride, like if you really love what you're doing, you're not worried about the accolades, right? Like if you're doing a report or you're doing something, your head is down. You just focus on the job at hand. And I'm humbled when people like yourself makes those comments, because again, that's not my makeup is not that. It's not for the accolades. I don't do it for social media or to be acknowledged in a clubhouse room. My thing is because I enjoy what I do. And sometimes that can rub people the wrong way. But at the end of the day, as long as those people realize that you're trying to win, and if they're along for the ride with you, then let's get in this car and drive together. Because if we had that same mindset, I might drive 75, you might drive 55, but as long as we're going to the same place, we're going to eventually get there together. And I think, again, that's the thing with people that I tell people all the time. You can't you got to have a passion for something. Everybody wants to be Stephen A. Smith or Wendy Williams. Maybe not Wendy now, but when Wendy in her heyday. But everybody wanted to be that. But there's work involved. I mean, these things don't happen overnight. The 950 Lounge journey it's still a work in progress as far as I'm concerned. These things don't happen overnight, but if you embrace it and you grind it, it will happen. And there's people that I know. It's a guy named CP, runs Knicks Fans TV on YouTube, just had a dollar and a dream, and now he's on a series doing a show on NBA radios. Another guy named JR Sports Brief started just like on YouTube, just with his laptop. Now he's working somewhere in Atlanta for a major network. NBA, I think he's working for the NBA as well. So again, 15, 20 years ago, you had to have formal training. You had to, be on a network, or you had to go through those channels. Now, again, because of the golden age of the independent of streaming media, if you know what you're talking about, like I listen to you guys when you talk about Raptor sports. I mean, you guys are, a 1-2 punch. Why not Faheem and Nelly? Because again, in this day and age, if you have the knowledge, technology has given us the opportunity to broadcast to the masses. Just like if you look at all the news outlets, right? They get all their information from Twitter, I mean, it's the reason why Shams has become the #1 guy. I mean, he works for a small network. It's because of the Twitter reach. And I think, again, that's what, again, I try to bring to the table with 950 and now I'm on this new sports show and all the things I partner with and help people, because again, it's there for the taking. So what you see on TV and what you hear, that's not necessarily is the gospel anymore. Because we're all gathering the information from the same place. It's just how we present it and who's entertaining and who's informative and who people like. And if you can combine those three, it's a winning combination.
Well, that is facts. Like everything is said about streaming, the fact that now creators doesn't have to know someone. Like if you're impactful and engaging, people will be drawn to you. But I also think for your journey, just how you've started off as an athlete coaching and now you're moved into media, it just gives, I think, a lot of athletes who don't make it to the big stage of the NFL, the NBA, and other leagues that, hey, yes, you may not make it to the highest level, but you could still be a part of the sport. Like,
of course,
there's so many jobs around sport, within sport, that have been taken or given to people that aren't not Black. And I just think that sometimes it's because a lot of people that are Black aren't aware of those positions and jobs that we can go into. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a great story. And I think you're definitely someone that I think a lot of young, young kings are going to be like, hey, like, I can do what Kevin does. Like, I can just practice, get YouTube, and just keep going, and then force myself to learn these skill sets because I want to do that.
I appreciate that. Again, it's just doing what you love. I mean, think about this. And I'm showing, again, I've been showing my age this whole evening. But there was no such thing as a YouTube or, a podcast option. So again, you can start these things, but even on a larger level, you look at like what I Am Athlete or the Pivot has done. They've created lanes for themselves too. I doubt Fred Taylor would have been able to get a job on ESPN as a commentator, but he's become a brand with the Pivot, or what you've seen even with Cam Newton. And his flair and flamboyance with his podcast. So again, these shows have become, pretty much media go-tos, nothing different than what we do.
Yeah.
And the ability to go after advertising and sponsorship has really grown. And that's really kind of started, when you think about the podcast world, there was a guy named Glenn Beck, he's a very conservative talk show host, and he left traditional media, terrestrial media, like 5-6 years ago, when he went into the podcasting game. And this is when podcast was very, wasn't as what it is now. And people thought he was crazy. And he made more money in the podcast world than he did in terrestrial. And now we fast forward to 2022, kind of like, I won't say post-pandemic, but, on our way out of the pandemic. People, all they lived on was podcast and streaming, for a year and a half. So now the genie's out the bottle and advertisers are on board. radio stations are losing money because nobody's advertising on radio anymore. And that's now starting to go to TV, because if you're not streaming and partnering with a TV network, advertisers are not even putting that big money in. Obviously we're seeing Apple and Amazon getting ready, and Amazon's doing the NFL. If that don't tell you right there the power of streaming, cord cutter type media, then I don't know what to say. And you got to have content, and you got to have things to go on these networks. So networks like that are plucking people like us that maybe, wouldn't have a normal chance years ago, are now saying, wow, they're entertaining, they're informative, and, they got a following.
So true. So true.
So last time I checked, I think the podcast industry is about 4 billion. So, and it's obviously trending upward every year, right? For 950 Lounge, what is your target demo?
For us, it's that Gen Xer, 35 to 55. Somebody still got a little swag, but has to work every day. Probably even a little younger, like 29, 30. First real good job out of college to putting somebody into college. That first apartment to somebody buying that first home. Our audience is kind of an educated, unique audience that, again, like I said, they'll work a 9 to 5, but still know how to rock their Timbs. I'm showing my New York on the weekends. And I think, again, that's what we are, right? So when we first put this thing together, it was like, all right, let's put a show that talks how we would talk. I'm not 16, 17 years old. I can't have that conversation. I can't tell you about little such and such, all these little, I don't know these rappers.
He said the little ones.
The littles, right. So I'm not going to discuss that. I'm going to talk about things that interest me and my circle. Because again, the guys on the show and the girl on the show, we're friends. So we all kind of have similar backgrounds, similar age groups and what have you. So we're going to talk about things that fit us. And if it fits us, somebody else is going to like it. Because I think, again, and you think about that 35 to 50 audience, African-American, Canadian, has been kind of, I think, not appreciated. I mean, we're the group that has the good jobs. We're the group that has the, have the money to travel. We're the group that has the money to buy stuff, not the 18-year-olds. It's the older people that can invest in things like what we want to offer from a marketing perspective. So when I go to advertisers, I'm like, look, this is a neglected audience, but it's a prideful audience and an audience that's financially comfortable. Because again, we looked at our demo, about 48% are college grads. It's almost half. So that's saying a lot for the audience that kind of, focuses on us on a daily basis.
Love it. Love it. Faheem, you're muted, so.
And especially since having AOC on there also, you were saying last time that really had helped getting exposure to the pod.
Yeah.
You mentioned ad dollars. Is there, because one thing, definitely talking football with you, you're very well-rounded, and a lot of that, as you mentioned in our last episode, comes from you growing up with football and being around football and pursuing football. But you did also mention that there's people who maybe didn't have the luxury like you had of being a player, but they still watch the game every Sunday and they have their opinion. Is there any difference, or actually, if you can just give us a few things that are different from actually being a player from your perspective, and maybe somebody who just watches it every Sunday, because you're not just pigeonholed to sports, but you do a wide range of things. Right. If you were to do sports, is there anything that you think that you might have that some insight in regards to not just the game itself, but I'm also talking knowing the game, but also how you present the game also? Because I've heard you on Clubhouse in your rooms, and I hear a lot of people talking, but you are definitely coming with a lot of knowledge behind it. So I just want to know if there's anything out.
Well, I think again, I really do believe that you don't have to be a player in order to be able to break down any sport. If you're a student of the
Mhm.
game and you understand that you can have intelligent conversation and be very strategic in your conversation and your pinpoints. I think what I do gain from being in those trenches is that obviously there's certain things you can't measure. Like when the pundits talk about, oh well, he's having an off game or he's running. If you walk through an NFL training room on a Monday, it's like a mass unit. If any, I don't know if you guys have been in the military, but it's very similar to walking into a war unit. Um, that's the one thing about, especially with football, that I don't care how great you are, there's no measuring that unless you've had those pains, unless you've had those surgeries, unless you've had to take that needle. That's the difference, I think, from when people break down the sport and having been in the sport, the pain threshold. Because it's easy to tell somebody, oh, he's got a high ankle sprain. Well, a high ankle sprain, you try going to work with a high ankle sprain.
That's painful. Painful.
Right. Or a torn labrum. Or, these are, I mean, we hear these terms, right? And it's just we become numb. Oh, it's just he's got a hamstring pull. The
The worst
hamstring's
is when
off
they
the
say,
bone.
like, Kevin, the worst is when they say, oh, it's just his finger. Bruh, have
Right.
you ever typed with a broken finger? Like, have you worked with a finger broken or a broken
Just
toe?
just
Come
trying
on,
to go to
man.
sleep with a broken finger. So I think that's the difference when I start to break down like the difference between somebody who just and knows the game. And again, it's plenty of great people who've never played on a football field that can break it down and take a mark and go on a whiteboard and draw it up. But the one thing I think that separates the person or the people who've done it is that the situation, and also the locker room. Just like an office setting, the locker room's a unique place. Probably much different in the office setting, but just, again, you take a bunch of guys from different backgrounds and different ethnicities, and you add money to that situation, and you add the access of what money can get, and that can spill over to the football field. I mean, I know certain guys that, their lifestyle and their pursuit for the opposite sex. I mean, there's so many things that can affect the game. And those little things that you don't really talk about because the locker room's a sacred place, and the injury component are the two things that I think is the difference from somebody who just says I can pick it out and I know it is stats, but somebody who's actually played. Again, I never begrudge an NFL player about getting more money, because I know by the time they're 40, most of these guys won't be able to walk. And now we understand you take the seat, the head CTE threshold situation, some of these guys won't be able to think. Tony Dorsett was one of my favorites growing up. He can't even remember. He wrote a story that he has to write down in his car the way to get home some days because he don't know how to get home. It's it's a brutal sport. It's again, it's something that we all love. It's become an American pastime, but it's also unforgiving. So get your money when you can, because when it's over. And sometimes certain guys, we talked about it previously about other things after sports. Sometimes certain guys can't do things after sports because they're so beat up or so distraught in their head. It's a brutal sport.
Well, Kevin, this is why for the culture. So on our way out, I wanted to ask you if you can give the audience just your top 3, the things that you think creates good habits for success. Because I said before, you're just someone that is always doing something new, and I'm like, does this guy ever stop? Like, so what are some things that helps you create good habits or learn something new? Give me a couple, I guess, advices that people can kind of take home with you. Yeah.
Well, it might sound cliche, Nelly, but I think again, starting the morning off right. I try to get up about 5 a.m. I meditate, I run. people who follow my social media.
Yep.
I speak. I don't even. It just whatever comes to my head. My own team thinks I just go to the park and dump water on my head, but that's a whole nother story. But I think again, starting your day off right. Whatever you believe in, your focus, getting that I call it quiet time to get your mind right. Almost playing the day out before it starts, similar to an athlete, reenacting the game before the game was even played. Number 2 is having a focus, a passion, whether that's a job, whether that's a extracurricular activity that can become revenue generating, but having a passion. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to generate money. You might just like doing crossword puzzles. You might love to needlepoint. You might love to just yes, find something that whether it's your occupation or not. Find something you have a passion for outside just taking care of your family and paying bills. I think it's again, so many people, we're robots. We go to work, we take care of our families. There's no time for us. There has to be a balance in life because you'll just wear thin. And I don't care how important other people are around you. The greatest love of all is of oneself. So find something that you can enjoy. And the last but not least would be in my book is just be appreciative to what you have. Now, again, some have a lot, some have a little. But what COVID has taught me over the last 2.5 years, that no matter if you a billionaire or living on the street, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. 4 years ago, January 29th, I almost died. Blood clot, didn't even know it. And it's funny, you mentioned the AOC interview was 3 days after the AOC interview. So one of the best interviews we've done, and maybe kind of what you call, quote unquote, put us on the map, I almost died. And after that, I realized that, nothing's more important than my health. My drive, my passion, this goal attitude I have is nothing without the health. So everything I do is predicated to that, to getting up in the morning, having something I love, an enjoyment. And I follow three-point rule. If it doesn't make me happy, if it's not making me better mentally as a person, and if it's not monetarily sufficing me, then it doesn't matter. Like I go on these apps and I hear people arguing, people they'll never meet in life. Like, why are you having this argument? Does it make you better personally? No. Does it make you better spiritually? No. Is it giving you money? No. So why deal with it? So I think again, people, find things you love, start your day with a quality zen, and be happy for what you have. You can combine that, not saying be satisfied, never be satisfied, but be happy what you got. Because if you got your health and you got your mind and your zen and you have a passion, you can go out and go after anything you want. The new pivot starts every day you open your eyes.
Woohoo! Mic drop,
Nice.
mic drop. Selecta, bam, bam. Okay, for my Jamaicans. No, but real talk. Thank you, Kevin. Great advice, y'all. I hope you wrote it down. I know I'm gonna play this back myself because I think everything you gave was really good advice that we all can follow. So that's it for him. He's for the culture. We're gonna have all his information, how you can follow him, his shows, what he's up to, his upcoming projects. We'll have it for you in the summary of the show.
I appreciate you too. And again, like I said to your audience, support these two people. They are doing some great things. You're going to see a lot more of them. I'm on board. I mean, even before even working and partnering with things, I was a fan. Iron sharpens iron and real recognizes real. So salute to you two. Continue blessings and success and keep going for it because it's within your reach.
Appreciate that, Kevin, man. This guy for the culture, no doubt. Let's go to our last one, which is That's Absurd.
That's absurd. Faheem, bro, what was absurd this week? What was absurd?
So I'm not sure where this is going to land in regards to That's Absurd. But I have to say this. The NFL has been overlooking HBCUs in the NFL draft, meaning not every NFL team is sending scouts to look out and check out these HBCU players. I think that happening in 2022 right now and them having no representation in the NFL draft for HBCUs, I think it's absurd.
Absurd. So you're saying that the NFL has not been sending scouts? Is it the NFL's fault or is it the NFL team's fault? You know what I'm saying? 'Cause is it the teams of the NFL who do not see value? That's why they're not going to HBCU games? Do you know more about that? Or Kevin, if you guys
Well,
pipe in here.
I do know that 22 teams actually were represented, but there are 10 teams that didn't send scouts to see players in the last, and not one single player from the HBCUs was drafted.
Well, what you're talking about, Faheem, is the Jackson State Pro Day, when Dion mentioned that 22 to 30 came to his pro day. There were a few guys that got drafted. And I think ever since Prime has entered into the HBCU space, it's kind of been like a renaissance, a revival of HBCU sports. James Houston, linebacker for Jackson State, who had a great year last year. He got drafted in the 4th round to the Detroit Lions. There's another young man that played for Alabama State, I think an offensive lineman that got drafted. Marquise Bell from Florida A&M, while was not drafted, is with the Dallas Cowboys. He's an unrestricted free agent, but he's playing well. Jacoby Durant from South Carolina State was 4th round pick to the Rams, and he's doing really well. So I think we're starting to see that. Obviously, Travis Hunter, who's the #1 high school recruit that went to Jackson State, and we playing this fall for the Tigers. You know, you got that type of focus, that type of new type of athlete going to HBCU schools. I think that tide will start to change. But the reason, I think, going back to what you guys mentioned, is laziness. It's we know the NFL prints money. So it really comes down to a situation where, like, you can't send you already going to Ole Miss and Mississippi State, so I can't send a kid to Jackson. I mean, a scout to Jackson, Mississippi, or to have those schools have a hub where they can bring 3-4 players in. I think, again, it just becomes laziness, and I think, again, it's a guy like Dion, who's got the cachet and who's got the reach to NFL organizations, he pretty much can put people on blast. That couldn't happen before Dion got there. I think the difference between HBCU talent and maybe Division I, or they are Division I, but Power 5 or FBS talent is not much. It's not much of a difference in the skill spots: receiver, defensive back, running backs. I think the difference is the linemen and the quarterbacks, because the quarterbacks, the big schools have the budget to go out and bring a quarterback coach in, or pay a guy extra money. They got the money for it. The linemen, there's not too many of them big boys around, so those big schools are getting those big linemen. But when you talk about receivers and defensive backs and running backs, the gap is not big at all. And I think what Dion is doing at Jackson State, and I'm so proud, because I'm going to the MEAC SWAC Challenge in Atlanta to cover Alabama State Howard in August, is he's bringing focus. And that focus has now made everybody else have to get better. Because if one guy's in there just, getting talent and loading up, you got to load up to compete. So I think it's made the game better. It's brought more focus. There are more games on national TV in the SWAC and MEAC, the 2 premier HBCU conferences. And I think, again, we won't see a time where HBCU kids will get left out of the draft. I'm wholeheartedly believe we'll start seeing, and we'll start seeing even now, instead of like the 2nd and 3rd day drafts, 1st and 2nd day draft players, 1st round and 2nd round players coming into the league from HBCU schools in the next couple of years.
I agree. I definitely think we're going to see more and more HBCU kids coming through. Like, the talent is there, and we're seeing even like highly scouted or 5-star, athletes in football selecting HBCU. So it's definitely going to be trending upwards. Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Kev, enough knowledge drop. I definitely think we should. I just want to say something real quick in regards to Dion. He's great for HBCUs, first of all. Recruiting, just giving a look to the HBCUs. I do think that it's kind of absurd in 2022 that this isn't happening, but having someone like Dion forefronting that, be a part of change, no doubt. So, but Nelly J, I think let's put this episode in the books.
That's right, y'all. That was the Good Rookie Show. So, Kevin, as you know, we love to give our guests a chance to do a shout out. So the floor is yours.
Well, again, thank you guys so much. It's been fun. It's always a pleasure. You guys, we got to do this in my house, on my show, as we get started. But again, you can catch my show, the best team in radio outside of these charming two people, every weekday morning from 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, the 950 Lounge Show, best team in radio on multiple networks. Also now welcome our new partner, She's Real Radio out of Atlanta, where you can catch us on midday from 10 to 1, Monday through Friday, 10 to 1 Eastern. Again, also launching in August our video presence on Catch Card, which is finally here. Very excited about that. And KP on Sports coming next month. We'll be at speaking of HBCUs, we'll be at the MEAC SWAC Challenge, Howard versus Alabama State. Covering that game in Atlanta, and obviously everything under the sun, inside the lines, outside the lines will be touched. So get ready for that. So a lot of things to be done, and also 950 Kev on Instagram and 950 Kev on Twitter.
Awesome, yo, Kevin. My shout out is quite simple. Shout out to you. Sorry, I had to do that. No, but shout out to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Definitely a huge advocate for what you're doing. Definitely someone I think everyone needs to tap into. And if you want to be motivated, trust me, watch his morning Instagram post, y'all. You're going to be like, damn, I'm lazy as F. So make sure you follow Kevin, 950 Kev. Great sports mind. My other shout out actually is quite simple. And actually, I think y'all might think it's weird, but it isn't. But I do want to shout out to like the Canadian men's 4x100, who in the world's relay won gold. That's right, y'all. They beat the USA men. Sorry, Kevin, but they beat the USA men's relay team. And if y'all did not see Degrassi's last leg, Lord, it was, this man held that man off like it was crazy. Anyways, the big up
DeGrasse.
You
said Degrassi.
I'm so sorry, DeGrasse.
Okay.
I said Degrassi.
It's okay.
I was thinking about thank you. DeGrasse, you know what I'm talking about, man. Damn Faheem. But yes, DeGrasse, his anchor was amazing. But big up to the Canadian men who won gold. Like, that's his story, because USA men's team, and I think France team also killed it at the Olympics. So big up to that team, Faheem. Pass it to you.
Once again, if you're looking for any type of inspiration in the morning, I definitely recommend you taking in Kevin on his socials. He definitely, when he was given the little background in regards to what he does for his morning, that's real. Like when he says he's up at 5 a.m., I'm not up with him, but I believe him because I can definitely see that every morning he's posting, he's dripping wet, and he's coming with inspiration for the feed. So, Kevin, we appreciate you for what you do for us, the inspiration you do. And Nelly G, I think we should put this episode in the books.
Yes, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning into the Good Rookie Show.
Yeah.
So if you had a good time and you enjoyed yourself, please like and tell a friend to tell a friend. Faheem.
Yes. We are on all platforms if you're looking for us. That's the Good Rookie Show. And we out. Peace.